In 1850, 13 acres of land were dedicated to the Old Gray Cemetery in downtown Knoxville. The cemetery was named after Thomas Gray, an English poet, and over 9,000 people are buried there. The cemetery also holds over 150 years of rich history. Many clues and even stories can be unraveled from the grave markings on the headstones in this cemetery, as we saw through our investigation of the Mabry O'Connor case. Joseph Mabry's gravestone is a tall obelisk. Obelisks were popular from the 1880s through the 1920s and came from the Egyptian symbol of a resurrection or rebirth. Not only does the shape of Mabry's headstone have symbolism, but also the size and detail prove his family had money. The headstone of Reverend William Humes, another man we studied, looks like a lid. Originally, headstones were placed over the coffin and are still seen every so often today, but more commonly headstones are found upright at the head of the coffin. Humes has his titles engraved in the headstone, but there is also a cross. Simple crosses were a very important symbol of Christianity and are found on a large portion of the graves in Old Gray Cemetery. There are a variety of crosses that represent different denominations or religions as well. A cross with a flame means the person was a Methodist, while a cross with a circle symbolizes a member of the Presbyterian Church. The Celtic or Irish cross is used to denote monks or priests. Other religious markings include the Star of David for Judaism, the Wheel of Righteousness for Buddhists, Angel of Moroni for Mormons, and the Crescent Star for Muslims, though these symbols are not common in Old Gray Cemetery as it is primarily a Christian cemetery. Crowns are commonly found with crosses as well and symbolize victory over death and the afterlife. Hands are another popular marking, and in different positions they represent multiple things. The most common position is of hands clasped, which can represent an earthly farewell, a heavenly welcome, unity, friendship, or marriage. If one hand is feminine while the other is masculine, it represents holy matrimony. This is more easily distinguished from the cuff of the sleeve rather than the hand itself. If the wording consort of with the husband's name appears under the wife's name, then the husband was still alive when the wife died. But if the wording relict of with the husband's name appears under his wife's name, then the husband was already deceased when the wife died. Cremation was one of the earliest forms of burial in which ashes were put into an urn and the container came to symbolize immortality. Now the urn is common on tombstones. Draped urns are also common. Drapes typically symbolize mourning, but when found over the urn, they can represent many things such as the impenetrable veil between the living and the dead, the shedding of the mortal body in order to join God in heaven, and the protection God has over the dead. Angels are also placed in the cemetery as guardians over the dead and symbolize spirituality. Old Gray has a few Victorian angels that symbolize agents of God and watch over the deceased. Wreaths are widely common in the cemetery and symbolize saintliness, victory, and glory over death. Many Civil War veterans are found in Old Gray Cemetery. One significant monument at the cemetery is the Horn Monument. A life-size Confederate soldier stands beside the grave of two Confederate veterans, William Asbury Horn and John Fletcher Horn. Not all veterans' graves are as significant, but there are a variety of markings to represent their service. The eagle represents Civil War vets and symbolizes courage, faith, and generosity. The American flag represents liberty and loyalty, while shields and crossed swords represent strength and courage. Stars and stripes around an eagle typically symbolize distinguished service. The 5 branches of the military, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard, each have their own grave marking. Other groups, such as the Masons and the Boy Scouts of America, have their own symbols as well. Oftentimes, the profession of the person can be told from the grave and the symbols. An apple on top of books means the deceased was a teacher, while a mortar and pestle means the deceased was a pharmacist or doctor. And there are many others. Tree stones were also popular from the 1880s to 1920s. Joseph Colin Root was the founder of Modern Woodmen of America and also of Woodmen of the World, both fraternal insurance benefit societies. Both became well known for using tree gravestones for their members. Not only are headstone engravings interesting and describe the deceased, but we can learn a lot about history and even our own genealogy from cemeteries and the markings. Old Gray Cemetery preserves a large part of Knoxville's history through the late 1800s and 1900s, and countless stories can be told about the important founders, writers, senators, military members, and others who were buried there.